Okay, good evening. Yep. Okay. This is coming from here. This is the Planning Board hybrid meeting, March 17th, 2025, it's 4 p.m. Please note, this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly thereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording in the meeting, please notify the chair. I don't know if there's anybody there. Nothing's popped up. Pursuant to the Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023 extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31st, 2025. This meeting of the Chatham Planning Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 280-568-708#, or join the meeting online via remote Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, formerly Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. Okay, I'd like to begin with a roll call. Warren Chain.
Warren Chain, present.
Bob Werthschafter.
Bob Werthschafter, present.
Charlene Greenhall.
Charlene Greenhalgh, present.
Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus, present.
And Catherine Halpern, I think you're remote.
Yes, Catherine Halpern, present.
Art Sprue, present, and Frank Shear is absent tonight. All right, so we begin with two public hearings for public hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, adoption of change of zoning ordinances or bylaws for the West Chatham Neighborhood Center District and the Town of Chatham Protective Zoning Map. And if the clerk can read the public hearings into the record.
I will be happy to do that, Mr. Chair. In accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Chatham Planning Board will hold a hybrid public hearing on Monday, March 17 at 4 p.m. at the Town Office Annex, Large Meeting Room, 261 George Ryder Road, and via Microsoft Teams to take public comments on the following proposed amendments to the protective zoning bylaw. Warrant article blank that will be determined later, to amend the Town of Chatham Protective Zoning Bylaw, Section 3, District Regulations. The warrant article would establish the West Chatham Neighborhood Center as a new zoning district in Section 3, District Regulations. The West Chatham Neighborhood Center District is located along Route 28 corridor in West Chatham from approximately 500 feet west of George Ryder Road to approximately 800 feet east of Barn Hill Road to the south of Route 28 and extending to properties on Weldon Way to the north of Route 28. Or as shown on the proposed zoning map amended herein, adoption of the West Chatham Neighborhood Center District would replace portions of the existing GB3 and R20 zoning districts as further described in the zoning amendment. And further, warrant article number to be determined to amend the Town of Chatham Protective Zoning Bylaw, zoning map. The town article would amend the Town Protective Zoning Map to include the West Chatham Neighborhood Center District boundary located along the Route 28 corridor in West Chatham from approximately 500 feet west of George Ryder Road to approximately 800 feet east of Barn Hill Road to the south of 28 and extending to properties on Weldon Way to the north of Route 28, or as shown in the proposed zoning map amended herein. The full text of the proposed protective zoning bylaw amendment can be found on the town website, https www.chatham-ma.gov/planning, or front slash, I always get that wrong, planning board, Arts Brew Chair, Cape Cod Times, printed dates March 2nd and March 9th, 2025.
Thank you. I want to just go through the,
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order. I move that we open these public hearings.
thank you very much.
I second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote on that. Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Wirtschafter,
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
Charlene Greenhall,
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, approve.
Catherine Halpern,
Catherine Halpern, approve.
and Art Spur, I approve. Okay, so I just want to go through the public hearing procedures, the steps that we'll take associated with tonight's hearing process. The public hearing notice will be read into the record by the clerk, which was just done. Presentation by the applicant, in this case, it's the planning board. We'll be making that presentation. Board questions and comments next. Public statements in favor of the application will follow. Any correspondence we'll read next. Public statements opposing the application will follow. Any rebuttal. Then we'll have board comments again. Hearing closed and board deliberations. And then after we do close the hearing, audience participation is not permitted during the deliberations. So I'd like to begin with a presentation that Christine, our planner, will walk us through for the first pieces. This will give us background about what we've been doing associated with the bylaw, the development of it, and where we are today. Just a few minutes to bring it up. I think you all have a copy of it in your packet, but I want this to be up on the screen. All right, we're getting there. There we go. Go to your view and you can do full screen. No? Okay. All right.
All right, to begin, we've gone over the basic pieces of this. We will start with the bylaw and the zoning amendment. The second slide here shows the,
Boy, it's hard to read.
shows the purpose of the zoning bylaw. And basically what is done here is we're creating a stronger connection, enhance the character of the town, in this general area, promote multimodal transportation, encourage more efficient land use, a range of housing opportunities, and provide a mechanism to increase the supply of affordable and attainable housing units. The last thing is to provide for contribute to year-round housing stock. The next slide shows basically, you started with drafting the bylaw for along the Route 28 corridor. I can't. Okay. After the planning board had worked on that, they worked on creating subzones within that district bylaw, within that district boundary. So we've come up with 3 subzones, which are considered A1, A2, and B. They are based basically from along the actual corridor with parcels that are fronting on the corridor, and then they work their way back.
Just need to click on each one.
Yeah, that's okay. The next thing that the planning board did was they went with the Cape Cod Commission, and they worked on form-based code, which is basically a planning tool used to determine how the district would look. They created a draft bylaw and worked with the council on that.
And let me just interject. There we go.
Sorry.
And let me just interject here. The Cape Cod Commission was brought on board in September of 2020, and they had developed several of bylaws in other communities on the Cape using the form-based code. And they introduced us to this topic back in 2020. The planning board then decided that this was a good direction that we wanted to go in. And then they instituted their first forum, which they went through a whole series of questions, asking the audience to participate and provide input that helped guide the development of it. So that was the beginning stage of using the form-based code, and over the years we have refined it as each stage that we went on. Christine, please continue.
So from there, the planning board worked with consultant BSC Group and developed a build-out analysis based on what was considered the optimal density at the time. From there, the planning board then worked with another consultant, and they did some visualization studies on 3 parcels within the district, each with very different characteristics. And so the next few slides will just take you through. So on the left-hand side, we have the actual boundary, and that's over an aerial photo just to give you an idea of where we are. And then on the right-hand side is the subzones that I had referred to. And what the planning board ultimately came to in the end was that the A1 zone would roughly be 150 feet from the right-of-way along Route 28. The A2 zone would be that area beyond the 150 of the right-of-way of Route 28. Those parcels would also, or those would be parts of parcels that actually have frontage on Route 28. And then the outside zone is Zone B, and those are lots without any frontage on Route 28. This next slide shows the actual graphics that were put together as part of the Cape Cod Commission form-based code demonstration. And so we talk about building frontages, facades, and then we talk about the setbacks on here, and then the secondary buildings, which are part of the units. And then lastly, we talk about building frontage. So these pieces were all used to develop the ultimate bylaw in the end. This next slide shows the BSC build-out analysis findings. And it does show some of the parcels that were being looked at, or all of the parcels, I should say, that were being looked at. And then the reddish area in there is basically the airport, part of the airport zone that comes across this, across the district.
That's the RPZ.
Yeah. From there, the planning board came up with some adjustments to the bylaw that was being drafted at the time. And Art will give you a little bit more detail about this, but basically we expanded the A1 zone from 100 feet to 150 feet, required 50% of the buildings within the A1 zone to actually be commercial, so there would be that mixed-use commercial component that the planning board had liked. We adjusted the density numbers a little bit during this, and then the other thing that happened primarily as a result of this was having more landscaping in the common area type of component to the bylaw.
Yeah, just as a pause here, when the BSC group presented in September of 2024, and this was the first time that a build-out analysis was applied based on what the bylaw, the way the bylaw was drafted back in June of 2024. So when we saw the build-out analysis, it looked like there was overabundance of residential and not as much commercial as we would wanted to see. So these 4 items were discussed as ways to adjust the criteria in the bylaw so that we would have a sufficient amount of commercial in balance with some of the residential. And then I think, Charlene, you were the one that identified common area landscaping, which was an excellent idea, because when we actually saw some of the sites with the residential, we said, well, if it's just buildings and parking, well, we need more than that. And I thought that that was a good add. But all of these things then played into what the revision turned out to be. And I think that the Union Studio visualization incorporated all of those changes, which were the newest version of what the bylaw would be. Okay, please continue.
So as Art alluded to, the visualization study came next, and what we did was we had Union Studios look at 3 parcels, like I said before, with very different characteristics, and we'll take you through each one of those. So now I want everybody to understand that these is just, they're just development scenarios. They're not actually any real proposals. Again, the properties were picked just based upon their characteristics. We tried to show something that was, on a smaller lot, something that was on a little bit larger lot, something that was on a corner lot. So we can go through the next few slides. The first one is 1671 Main Street, and again, this is a sample, and this has got a, it's a long, fairly skinny lot. We have the mixed use up front, and then we go back through the more commercial, more residential components of it. Next.
If you go back to that.
I'm sorry, sure.
Just so everyone knows where this lot is, this is where the post office is today. And the next one is the lot which is adjacent to the Ocean State job lot site. And after we finish this one, the third one would be where the Shop Ahoy is. So these are just visualizations of what possibilities could occur as some of these sites are developed based on the new bylaw. So
one of the biggest components of this one, 1652 Main Street, would be you can see the common area landscape in the middle of this site that we're looking at. And we show, access onto it on one side, and we kind of go down around and then turn back out. The next one is 1589 Main Street. This is one of the ones where we talked about where it is a corner. It's close to the turnaround areas that are along Route 28. And obviously that played into all of this. This bylaw was being developed as that roadway construction project had been going on. So that kind of held things at this point.
Okay, if you go back to the last
Back to that one?
image.
Okay.
This is at the Barn Hill roundabout. This is the Shop Ahoy. If this was redeveloped, this would be the approach which would need to be taken. The residential component on this would be, because of the way the site is set up, the residential component would be in the on the upper level of all of the three buildings on retail, which is something that we were trying to encourage when the opportunity lended itself to it. So this site certainly would have more components of that in it than a separate building with just residential in it. But the sites could be developed in a very different way, depending on what each applicant would want to do. But this gives you an idea, I think, of what the approach was that we had taken and the vision that we had when we put together the bylaw to begin with. What I'd like to do next, this is where we just get through with the bylaw, and we'll go into the actual map as a follow-up. I started last week and went through a lot of the issues that we had. Most of those had to do with addressing the comments of our town council. I'd like to go through those again. This is more formal for the purposes of this public hearing. If we want to make those revisions, we need to agree to those and incorporate them in as part of our public hearing process here today. They're in the memorandum that Christina has prepared. Now, just start walking us through these. Most of these are just text edits by the town council related to some refinements in the language or clarifications that he felt was important to have. Let's start with the first one on page 1 of the draft bylaw. Underneath the purpose, item G, this comment kept being raised by town council, and we felt that the best way to address this is let's just simplify the statement by deleting by establishing a 20% inclusionary housing requirement. We discussed that last week, and we agreed that that's probably the simplest way to just, since it's not really necessary for the purpose. There are other sections of the bylaw that get into this in detail. Any other comments on that one? Okay, the next few.
How do you want to address these as we go along?
I want to, if you have feedback, we'll deal with the feedback one by one, okay?
Do we want to vote to incorporate these changes now or later?
I think that we can do this as a group
Okay.
rather than,
Because I wasn't at the last meeting, so I kind of missed.
yeah. Okay. Catherine? Yes?
I just wanted to make a comment that however you prefer to do it, Mr. Chair, but I think if we did vote, we may need to do that after we close the hearing and enter deliberations as part of our overall vote.
Okay.
But please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But that's what if you do need to vote, I think it might be best to do it then,
Right.
if you agree. Thank you so much.
But I think we should discuss it now and make sure that the direction that we want to go in, and so that is out and open as part of the public hearing process. The next several are all going to be minor text edits by town council. Page 2, underneath procedures, just town council added at the end by the planning board. Again, just want to clarify who was the entity involved with that. Underneath definitions, he added underneath the first line on affordable housing, that is, again, it's a little text edit there. If you see any questions or concerns associated with this, just, pause me. Going on to page 3, underneath the attainable housing definition.
What about inclusionary?
No, at the very top, this is part of the attainable housing definition. There was a edit that he added a sentence at the end, a deed restriction for attainable housing shall be for the longest period allowed by law. So this, it's just a carryover from the other page. Now, next one is inclusionary housing. We discussed this last week, and we decided since this is not really referred to any place in the bylaw, that we would delete it. And it does no harm at all if we just delete it. And so that was the decision that we decided to do on that. The next one, we did add the short-term rental. That was the definition right below it. There was a comment by town council on this. However, this definition came from the Board of Health, and I believe it's also out of the state criteria. So we decided just to leave the definition as it is, because it's the one that's most consistent. All right, let's see. I think we're on to page 4, and mixed use development definition. There was, after commercial, he added and residential uses. It's just, again, just an adjustment in words. Next, on section 7, and it really goes on from page 5 all the way up to page 6. The comment that he had is these requirements could be vulnerable as to a challenge. We discussed that last week, and we understood that, but this has been used in other bylaws on the Cape, and we felt that we did have a precedent to actually continue with that type of an approach. So in our discussion last week, we agreed that we would leave the language as we had drafted it. Okay? Next is the bullet down just below that, where he added the word construction. He added construction cost for all of these items that are underneath section 7. It's just a clarification of what was meant by cost, and he was referring to it as more detail as construction. Next on continuing on page 6, underneath section 8 on the density. The first bullet, again, this was a comment by town council so that was just a comment more than anything. Just below that, the third bullet down, we added affordable, let's see, attainable and affordable, I think is what we were adding, right? Just a minute. Yeah, affordable and attainable. That's what we were adding. Is that you, Catherine?
Yeah, the 25% density bonus required results in a fractional, is that where you're looking? If the 25%
Correct.
density bonus results in a fractional unit. Yes, I think that was right.
Right,
as I
and
remember.
I think the clarification was it's affordable and attainable units is what should have been written in there. So
Yeah,
so that's
I think-
what we were adding.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Next section underneath section 9. This was a strikeout that town council suggested that it wasn't necessary. Upon discussion with community development staff and Gloria, we felt that there was no harm in leaving it in there. So the first bullet should read, first required unit shall be an affordable unit to
Households.
shall be affordable to households earning at or below 80% AMI and shall be eligible for inclusion on the town's subsidized housing inventory. So there's no harm in having the additional language in there, and it certainly provides the clarity that we were looking for. So we were going to leave the striked out section in. After that, in the second bullet, he added the word required unit shall be an attainable unit, affordable. Again, it was a little clarification. And the third bullet, again, with an addition of the language attainable units was added. Now moving over to page 7. Let's see, the second bullet. Let's see if I'm in the right place here. Where am I? Okay. All right, so the comment by town council was maybe we should, this should be the base amenities and finishes. So we decided to add that to the third bullet. In quantity, where the highlight begins in quality, and insert base material and finishes. And that refers to how the rest of the amenities in an affordable and attainable would also fall into that same base material and finishes category, and it couldn't be something other than that from a downgrade. The next third bullet down, we're adding the language in here through the special permit process after planning board. So applicants may apply to the planning board for a discretionary waiver through the special permit process. And I think it's another clarification that town council wanted, just so that it was understood that what is the process that an applicant would proceed on. On the fourth bullet down, this was a discussion item that we had last week, and I think you left it that we would go back, look at language that we would add here to deal with this. And the recommendation is, at the end, it says, has been recorded at the Registry of Deeds, have been or a regulatory agreement, whichever comes first. And that deals with this issue about, well, a regulatory agreement might have first and then the Registry of Deeds, and this way we're covered on both ends of it. On section 12, okay, and that's it on this page 7. We move it over to page 8, section 12. This is just, he added the word the, and he replaced the word the with a property. Again, just a typo change that he was proposing to do there. Next is section 13, which is on the same page. Couple of changes here, and one that I'm going to add that's not in the memo. The first piece is on, I just want to get the right section. Okay, this is 13B. This is the second bullet. All zones in a residential development include, and we had the word a certain amount, and it was suggested that we delete that so that the language would say if a residential development includes deed restricted affordable housing units, the maximum height allowed is 2.5 stories, though still not to exceed 30. Now here's where I want to add an additional element here of clarity. I want to add the language only for buildings that contain affordable housing. So this would read, if a residential development includes deed restricted affordable housing units, the maximum height allowed is 2.5 stories, though not to exceed 30 feet, only for buildings that contain affordable housing. Or that could be done before the parentheses. And the reason for this is there could be a single affordable housing unit in two buildings. And this implies, without this additional language in here, that if only one building had an affordable or attainable unit in it, that this is the only building that would allow 2.5 stories. The other building would have to be 2 stories. This was raised by one of the board members last week, and we felt that some language was important to have. All right.
Can we talk about that one?
Yeah, absolutely. You can talk about any one of
All right.
these.
Well, this is the first one that I felt the urge or the need.
Sure.
If a residential development includes a or multiple deed-restricted affordable housing units, because if you just have it as deed-restricted housing units, somebody's going to say, well, that's not one, that's 2. So.
Okay. Good, that's a good point. We'll make that addition too. Thank you. All right, we're close. Next one is, let me see, what page am I on? Okay, this is, I think something's missing here. Okay, got it. Oh, we're still in section 13. It's on page 9, section 13E. This is building features. This is all the way down, the exceptions for historical structures to maintain historical window configuration. Town council says may want to define this, and the language that was provided by the community development staff is add historically significant building or structures as defined in chapter 158 of the Town of Chatham's general bylaws or as defined by the Historic Business District Commission design guidelines. So we do have a item in a section right in the front that references that all the other provisions of the protective bylaw are included. However, this definition of historically significant buildings is in the general bylaw. It was not in the protective bylaw, so we felt it was important to make the clarifying point that town council had brought up. And this was probably the best way to address that. Moving on to page 10, which is section 16, landscape standards. First bullet test refers to a site plan review, no change there. That was raised by town council. We didn't have, the answer to this is, yes, this is by special permit, and we didn't feel there was need to make any edits to the text. And moving to the top of page 10, again, this is still in landscaping, it's the second bullet. It was brought to our attention for a site clarification there that the low fence or landscape wall, we had it at 2 to 3 feet, and this was recommended to us to have it at 2.5 feet, so that it wasn't any higher than that. This is from a site distance perspective. Next, we are at section 18, the permitting table. This is on page 15. All right, so underneath multifamily, mixed use and residential, it refers to mixed-use developments with 1 to 4 residential units, not utilizing the density bonus. That should be 2 to 4, and the same thing would be the case for underneath the residential piece, multifamily dwellings with 2 to 4 residential units. Again, it's just a clarification. The next one, this was raised by, this point was raised by me, and this had to do with in the Zone A1. I just wanted to make sure that when we have mixed-use, commercial and residential in that A1, that 50% of the uses have to be commercial. That applies to whatever is built in the A1 zone. We did get a clarification from the building commissioner that that's his interpretation on this, though there's no need to change the language as it was written. Now, the next piece that I want to get into has to do with single-family dwellings. We discussed this a little last week. We came to no conclusion. I asked for some more background information, and it was the community development staff provided that. So here's the backdrop on this. There are 2 parcels that are not developed in the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. They are under 15,000 square feet, all right? Those 2 parcels, one is at Marketplace, and the other one is at, and I know I'm going to get this pronunciation wrong, Suquanset? Yeah, Suquanset, yeah. The one at Marketplace is 14,000 square feet. The one at Suquanset is 11,150 square feet. This is in a B zone. It's essentially what is allowed to be used in here and developed is residential. If you take the uses, the criteria that we has of a right for this zone, the only thing that would be allowed would be 1 dwelling unit based on the calculation because of the density that we have. So essentially, unless we put some sort of provision in here to allow and it's only 2 parcels, unless we put this provision in here, these sites would not be developed with anything. And I don't think that that's something, that the type of criteria we had intended here. I understand in our discussion that we had last week, it was not our intention to have single-family residential dwelling units in here, but this particular criteria of lots that are less than 15,000 square feet, essentially, they can't put multiple units on it. They don't meet the criteria for it as of right. And I think that that's an important thing that we do. Now, there are other sites that are smaller that have already single-family residential on them. We're not worried about them because they are pre-existing and they can continue to have their single-family residential units on it within the West Chatham Neighborhood Center District. So I want to make sure that this criteria or what I'm bringing forward in here is clear, because if we don't make some sort of adjustment, there will be several parcels in here that will not be able to develop anything, and I don't think the bylaw should fall into that category. Charlene?
I think this is a great idea for those lots in particular, but I'm wondering if we want to say built on either vacant lots or undeveloped lots.
Yeah, I'm okay with some adjustments in
Because
here.
there may be a lot that is in existence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think we want to specify that these are for either undeveloped or vacant lots.
Well, the other thing I was looking at too is well, we could cut the district off on these. These fall in the original GB3 district, so that really isn't a solution. So they need to stay within the West Chatham neighborhood boundary, and I think that that's an excellent suggestion on other language that we put in.
I don't know which would be better, vacant or undeveloped, like 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
I think either is fine, but I would be specific, perhaps something along the lines of lots in existence vacant lots in existence at the time of adoption of this bylaw may be allowed, or a single-family dwelling would be allowed to be built on those lots. I mean, we can wordsmith the language a little bit more, but that's basically what it would be. It would be only for vacant lots in existence at the time of the adoption of the bylaw.
And I think.
And there's
just-
two.
Yes,
There's
and
only
I
two.
think it's going to be a simple adjustment to the language.
Right, I think we could just footnote the table and put it in as a footnote.
Bob Dugas?
Mr. Chairman, I know these two lots, and I know the people that have them. And they've been waiting for the sewer to go by
Yeah.
so that they can develop them.
Yep.
Because they're so tight.
Yep.
So I am in favor of making an amendment to
Right.
allow these to build single-family houses.
Well, what convinced me is that once you go through our criteria, nothing would be allowed on them, the way that we had structured it. And at least this allows some development to occur, which is, I think we have to be reasonable in what we are drafting here. Bob,
But just for clarification, it's GB3 now, so
it's GB3 now.
so they can't develop on it now.
Well, no, they can do it by special permit.
They could.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, this is Catherine. I have a
Okay,
question.
please go ahead.
I hear what you're saying, but could you please clarify for me why? Is it just that the lots are too small to build, for example, one multifamily structure
That-
on each lot?
That's correct. If
Is
you,
that-
if you follow the
okay.
criteria for 5 units per acre times
Yes.
that size there, it comes out to just a little over 1 is all you get. And that means you can't build more than 1, according to the criteria. In some
You couldn't
cases,
build a
in some
multifamily.
cases, like the lot in, off Marketplace, it probably doesn't lend itself to do more than 1 unit there anyway, and it's not gonna be, in either of these, it probably won't have large, units on these properties, but I think we have to, I checked with everything else, it doesn't look like any of the other properties are impacted by this and would fall into this category, so, at least we'll cover the bases so that development can occur here and we won't have challenges to this, which I'm trying to avoid here. I don't want to have challenges because we're creating an undevelopable piece of property.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
the reason these lots weren't developed sooner is because they could only put single bedrooms on them.
bedroom on,
And now with the sewer, you have 2 bedrooms.
2 bedrooms, okay.
And that's the reason that,
But single unit though, right?
right.
Yeah. Warren, I think you had, you wanted to add something here?
Well, first off, I think that's a reasonable approach to this particular question. If there are literally only 2 lots, could not the footnote indicate what those lots are? So there's no question in the future as to what this bylaw is accepting.
Right.
I would ask, just from my understanding, whether it wouldn't be possible, without this exception, to put up a single duplex, single building with 3 or 4 units in it. Would that be not permitted either?
If you follow the criteria, the answer is that is no.
Okay.
You're not allowed by the criteria.
That's just for clarification, just to make sure that I understand and it's in the
One-
record.
Once you get up to like, 20,000 square feet and that, everything falls into place.
I just wanted to be very clear and in the record that that's what we're talking about here. But I think that since it's such an extraordinary situation, that it makes sense to say, the 2 lots that are currently undeveloped are, and even if you identify them,
Right.
would be permitted to have a single-family home put on them. And if that's likely to raise questions, you can go even further to include, or in the bylaw, why that's the case. So there's never any doubt in the future for somebody else to say, well, yeah, but I'm in the same case or something. But I would agree that that's a reasonable accommodation for
Yep.
otherwise having a non-developed, undevelopable property. Sure.
Mr.
Charlene?
Chair, it's Catherine.
Okay, go ahead, Catherine.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to reply to Warren's suggestion. It is only 2 lots to which it applies. And again, I'll ask for your view and the view of Community Development Department. But by identifying those two lots specifically, perhaps we run the risk of looking like we're doing spot zoning, which we do not do. Might be better to just identify them according to the criteria, that they're too small to handle anything other, or however, than a single unit. However, it would be appropriate to identify the vacant lots that fall into this category. Maybe we need to add that are under a certain square footage, something like
Kitty,
that.
do you have a response for that?
I actually have a proposal for the board to consider. Single-family dwellings are allowed on vacant lots with less than 15,000 square feet that are in existence at the time of the adoption of this bylaw.
Okay. I think it does.
I think that says it.
I said vacant.
Yeah, but they're in existence now.
Yeah.
It's that they're vacant.
Yeah.
But also that they're in existence, so nobody can create
Lot.
a lot.
A lot.
So we want to make sure in existence that the adoption of the bylaw is in there as well.
I'll live with that.
Okay. Now I have one last thing that's on the list, and this has to do with short-term rentals. This is something that Warren has brought up several times. We're looking to, there is a criteria in the use table. And if you take a look at the table, it's the second one from the bottom, it says short-term rentals. It's A1 and A2 zone, it's not permitted. A1, A2, and Zone B is not permitted, but we're gonna add that same language to the mixed-use section of the table also, so that it's clarified that any residential will have no short-term rentals. However, one of the things that came up when I was discussing this with Katie and Christine is there are units that are in this future zone that probably are registered and have allowed short-term rentals. So we would be eliminating that criteria from those existing units. So this proposed language for a footnote would be any existing housing units registered as short-term rental units as of the date of this bylaw may continue to be used for such use until such use terminates or is abandoned. Again, we think that some of this might be adjusted as part of the seasonal communities piece, and if it's a town-wide change, then it would certainly apply here. But I think we do need to, again, this falls into that same category of if it's there, we don't want to take anything away. It's a pre-existing setup. So if the board members agree with that, we will add that as a note to the use table.
Yeah, I agree completely with that.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, does that work for you too?
Yes. Works for me.
It doesn't, if there was such a new law,
Yeah.
this would that supersede this? Because I don't want to create oh, no, we gave them rights regardless of what the state does, or regardless of what other things come later, because this just says it can continue regardless. So do we want to put in there or superseded by state law or something like that?
Katie, I'll defer to you on that.
I don't have town council's comment in front of us. Could you just read it again?
Okay, any existing housing units registered as short-term rental unit, as a short-term rental unit as of the date of this bylaw may continue to be used for such use until such uses terminates or is abandoned. So essentially, it would, well, you got a good point though, right? If there's state law that comes about that changes this,
Then that would supersede anyway.
that would supersede?
Would automatically supersede?
If there was a state law that required us to not allow short-term rentals, that would supersede. I'm not sure that that's something that is contemplated in the seasonal communities bylaw, but this is, this, I think the board was concerned that should people be utilizing their properties as short-term rentals currently, that they didn't want to stop people from doing that necessarily. This was newly created units under this bylaw
Yep.
Yeah,
that,
I just don't want to permanently
Yeah.
give them
Yep.
this. If we pass another bylaw based on the state's new definition or something else, I just want to make sure that once there's
Right.
another decision about short-term rentals, that this provision is no longer applicable.
if we were to do that, my suggestion would be that we amend that section as well. I mean, I think that that's what we
Because we'll probably have to amend many other sections too, not just this
All
one.
right, well, all right.
If I might, and I may be wrong, but I think Bob has a good point in that if it comes down as a general bylaw,
Yeah.
then it would be a prohibited use. If it comes as a zoning amendment that it's a prohibited use, those units would be protected,
Yeah.
in my opinion,
Yeah.
for short-term rental.
Right. Okay. Okay, that is the list of all the items we talked about last week, plus a few adjustments that we were looking for. Are there any other comments by the board before we continue to the next portion of the public hearing process?
Great job, Mr. Chairman.
All right, with that,
Yes, I'd like to just reinforce what Charlene said. Great job, Mr. Chair and Katie and Charlene. Really great
And
job.
staff, yes.
thank you. Yes.
and staff,
Believe me,
thank
the
you.
staff was working awfully hard on all of these items. All right, next part of the public hearing process is public statements in favor of the application. Do I have, Rick, if you would like to come up and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Rick Levitt. I and my wife Ella live on Barn Hill Road, just all within sight of the West Chatham Neighborhood Center, which I like to refer to as the Village Center. And happy St. Patrick's Day to you all.
Thank you.
I want to compliment the board and the staff for your hard work. And you could see how hard you work here today. Your persistence through all manner of challenges, not least a pandemic. And most of all, thank you for a zoning reform package that addresses Chatham's critical needs identified in the town's comprehensive development plan. You have been a welcome voice in support of the plan's goals of preserving both our natural and historic built environments while addressing the growing need for affordable housing and economic opportunity on a year-round basis. Our neighborhood centers on Route 28 are a valuable, underused, underdeveloped resource for meeting the diverse goals of preservation and development. Your choices in drafting this zoning bylaw reflect careful thinking and wise solutions to difficult, complex challenges. Mixed residential and commercial uses are traditional in village centers on the Cape and throughout New England. For one thing, they prevent the kind of highway commercial sprawl that plagues other Cape towns on Route 28. Added density needed for affordable housing is moderate. Form-based zoning helps preserve Chatham's historic look and feel. I have one more suggestion to make, a small one that adds just 2 words to the residential use table on page 15. I've mentioned this before. We all agree with professional planners that multifamily housing category includes small single-family cottage clusters, in addition to townhouses and duplexes referred to in the use table today. It will help to add cottage clusters, encouraging a mix of traditional missing middle housing types and sizes. Speaks to the overriding concern that Chatham preserve its historic character and beauty. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments in favor of the application? Christine, do I see any hands raised on this? No? Okay. Correspondence. I'm not sure that there was no correspondence, so.
No correspondence.
So the chair is not going to read any correspondence. All right, public statements opposing the application. Are there any? I don't see any hands raised. Nobody in the audience? No reason for a rebuttal. I don't know if there's any other board comments, but if there isn't any, then we can make a motion to close the hearing for the West Chatham Neighborhood Center bylaw. Go ahead, Charlie.
I think Rick, brought up a good point.
Okay,
I know that is our intention.
Yep.
Is that we would allow cottage-type multifamily that are individual.
Sure.
On a parcel. But would it hurt to actually add, because what we say is et cetera on the use table? It says townhouses, duplexes, I don't have it in front of me. But to say something along the line that was suggested by Rick.
It does say, including townhouses, duplexes, et cetera. We could put in
cottages.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay,
And
that,
it's a simple,
And,
Catherine, go ahead.
yeah, and keep the et cetera. I mean, there might be something else that we haven't thought
Yes.
of. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, but it,
so I
would
think the
agree,
board
it
members
doesn't
are in
hurt to
agreement
add that.
on this?
Yeah.
yes.
That's good? All right,
Great.
And it occurs a couple of places, so.
that's correct.
You need to make sure we get it each place.
Yes, in each place, right. Well, we're going to close the hearing first, and then we'll deliberate and vote on it as a board.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close the public hearing for the first proposed zoning amendment by the planning board.
I'll second it.
All right, do a roll call vote. Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Werschafter,
Bob Werschafter, approve.
Charlene Greenhall,
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, approve.
Catherine Halpern,
Catherine Halpern, approve.
and Art Spru, I approve. Okay, so we can, I think we deliberate on this before we go to the next one, right? Yeah. So I think we've gone through the comments, and here, they've pretty much been vetted. Now, I guess we don't need to vote on each separately, do we, Katie?
No, my suggestion is based on the fact that you took them all basically at the same time, I would vote on those. Perhaps then vote on Mr. Levitt's separately, since it was requested separately, but I don't know that you need to, but it might be cleaner.
All right, so let's have them deal with Rick Levitt's motion there first on adding the language.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we include in the use table in the appropriate locations before the word et cetera for multifamily, the term cottage clusters.
Cottage cluster.
I second it.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote on that. Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Werschafter,
Bob Werschafter, approve.
Charlene Greenhall,
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, approve.
and Catherine Halpern,
Yes, Catherine Halpern, approve.
and Art Spru, I approve. All right, then we're going to do an overall vote with the amended changes that we've discussed tonight for the West Chatham Neighborhood Center Protected Bylaw.
So move that motion.
Okay,
So second that motion.
all right, then let's do a roll call vote. Warren Chain,
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Werschafter,
Bob Werschafter, approve.
Charlene Greenhall,
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus, approve.
Catherine Halpern,
Catherine Halpern, approve.
Art Spru, I approve. All right. That's a big step. Now I gotta go to the actual article for the zoning map, I guess.
Mr. Chair?
Go
I have a
ahead,
question. This is
Catherine.
Catherine. I'm just wondering, because we've closed the hearing and we're deliberating now on the first article, do we also need to vote or recommend that that we send this back to select board with our recommendation that it be included on the warrant for annual town meeting 2025? Please correct me if I'm wrong, or if Christine and Katie can weigh in.
Sure, I think that should be done. My thought was that you could do the zoning map amendment
And
and then make the recommendations to the select board.
to the select board, right?
And, right, yes.
For
Okay,
both of them.
both of them,
Yes.
right, because they both
all right.
articles are essential for this bylaw.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you.
But thank you for reminding me, though, I appreciate that.
No worries.
I'm not sure, should I follow a similar process of support on this or vetting on this? No? Okay. Well, is there any discussion about the zoning map, particular zoning map for the West Chatham Neighborhood Center? No, this map has been what we've had on the books for quite some time, so I guess we should hear a motion then on approving the map as.
You need to go to the public.
Oh, I do need to go to public? Yes. Oh, okay, I apologize. Next, I look for public statements in favor of the zoning map. Any hand raised? Christine?
No, Mr. Chairman.
No. I think there's no correspondence. Any public statements opposing the application? Don't see any hands raised on that either. Any other further board comments? None? Then I have a motion to close the public hearing for the for the West Chatham Neighborhood Center zoning map.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, do a roll call vote. Warren Chain.
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Werschafter.
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
Charlene Greenhall.
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus, approve.
Catherine Hepburn.
Catherine Halpern, approve.
And Art Sprue, I approve. Okay, so we're closed. Deliberation. Any other further comments on this by board members? Do I hear a motion to approve this zoning map?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this zoning map change.
Okay. Thank you. I have a second.
Second.
Okay, another roll call vote. Warren Chain.
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Werschafter.
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
Charlene Greenhall.
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus, approve.
Catherine Hepburn.
Catherine Halpern, approve.
And Art Sprue, I approve. All right, so we need to refer these articles to the select board?
They've already been referred, so I would make a motion that we send a positive recommendation to the town meeting for inclusion in the town meeting warrant for both of these proposed zoning amendments and articles.
And request the select board to place them on the
And
warrant. They
request
haven't
the-
placed yet.
Okay, and request the select board to place them on the warrant.
Okay.
And could we note that it's a unanimous positive recommendation?
We haven't voted.
We haven't
yet.
voted yet.
We haven't voted yet.
Oh, we haven't voted. Oh, sorry.
I second that, though.
I'm jumping the gun here.
Okay. Let's do a roll call vote on this. Warren Chain.
Warren Chain, approve.
Bob Werschafter.
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
Charlene Greenhall.
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus, approve.
Catherine Hepburn.
Catherine Halpern, approve.
Art Sprue, approve, and that is a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. So,
Yes, although,
go ahead, Catherine, you had something else you would like to add?
sorry, I forgot to note, Frank Shearer is absent, so we would, I don't know how we note that. that
It would
he
just
was
be a
not included in the vote?
600.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
So the next steps on this is tomorrow at a 1:30 meeting, Christine and I will be presenting this to the Finance Committee. And then at 5:30, the Select Board will be hearing this warrant articles. We'll be there to explain this further at that meeting. And then after that, I have to discuss next steps with community development on what we would like to do for actually more information out on this. I plan to do more. I haven't really thought about that until we got to this stage. And I do appreciate all the support from the board as well as community development staff. We got to this point. We're gonna, with the consideration of both the Finance Committee and Select Board, we'll get this to town meeting in May. Any other thoughts or comments by the board members?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
it's Catherine. I just want to say again, as Charlene expressed, and as I expressed, I want to give my congratulations and compliments to you and to Katie and Christine and Gloria, that you've just done a terrific job pulling together all the last minute edits, and just a terrific job pulling everything together. And I'm looking forward to going forward to annual town meeting with great success. And thank you for the great, fabulous work.
It's interesting, Catherine, when you say that. The nitty-gritties on this were a surprise to me to actually deal with all the dotting the i's and crossing the t's. But I think after hearing some of the comments from town council and others, it was important that we take this step. It's been refined, I think, to the point as where we need to go for this before town meeting votes. So,
Absolutely. Yep.
all right, so I have a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Warren
Warren
Chain,
Chain, approve.
Bob Werschafter,
Wirtschafter, approve.
Charlene Greenhall,
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dubus,
Bob Dubus definitely approves.
Catherine Halpern,
Catherine Halpern approves.
and Art Spry approve, and the time is 5:12 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.